Hello, good evening, and welcome to News Central TV. My name is Mazino Appeal. Here are the stories making headlines beyond the continent. We begin the news in North America, where U.S. President Donald Trump signed an executive order to remove what he called transgender ideology from the military, marking a significant move that could set back LGBTQ rights. The order is part of a broader set of initiatives that also includes plans to build a U.S. version of Israel's Iron Dome missile defense system and reinstating service members dismissed for refusing the COVID vaccine. Trump, who previously promised to reinstate a ban on transgender troops, claimed that the military had been afflicted with radical gender ideology and argued that such policies were incompatible with the demands of active duty. The decisions have drawn strong criticism from LGBT advocates.
In addition, we will next, to ensure that we have the most lethal fighting force in the world, we will get transgender ideology the hell out of our military. It's going to be gone. In addition, we will stop our service members from being indoctrinated with radical left ideologies such as critical race theory. We're going to stop it. It's already been stopped. It's already been halted, totally halted.
President Donald Trump on Monday announced he signed 4 executive orders that will reshape the military, including banning transgender service members from serving in the U.S. Armed Forces, gutting the military's diversity, equity, and inclusion programs, and more. For News Central, international correspondent Afia Hagen has more.
U.S. President Donald Trump has enacted multiple executive directives aimed at transforming the American armed forces under the leadership of new Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth. A directive signed on Monday evening prohibits diversity, equity, and inclusion programs within military institutions. The measure will eliminate race or gender-based preferential treatment across the armed services, the Defense Department, and the Department of Homeland Security. An additional order reinstates the positions of over 8,000 military personnel who were dismissed for declining the COVID-19 vaccination. The White House indicated that a third executive order instructs officials to develop guidelines regarding transgender service members. This action does not immediately restrict transgender individuals from serving. A fourth directive establishes procedures to create an American Iron Dome, comparable to the defense system utilized by Israel in the Middle East, whilst the White House confirms a declaration has been issued to mark the 80th anniversary of Auschwitz's liberation. The executive orders were authorized by Trump whilst aboard Air Force One. Eliminating DEI initiatives within federal institutions was a key campaign pledge, one which Trump has promptly acted upon since assuming office last week. Supporters maintain these programs address historical inequalities and discrimination against certain groups, including ethnic minorities, whilst opponents argue such initiatives can be discriminatory themselves. The Trump administration suggests that eliminating these programs from the U.S. military will enhance recruitment numbers. Military officials have previously indicated that armed services collectively failed to meet recruitment targets by 41,000 personnel during the 2023 fiscal period. For News Central, I'm Afia Hayes.
Now let's also tell you that the White House is pausing federal grants and loans starting on Tuesday as President Donald Trump's administration begins an across-the-board ideological review of its spending. Its funding freeze, potentially affecting trillions of dollars, could disrupt healthcare, research, education, and numerous other programs. The memo from the Office of Management and Budget claims the freeze is necessary to prevent taxpayer dollars from advancing policies like Marxist equity and transgenderism. The move has drawn swift backlash from Democrats, including Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer, who called the action illegal and chaotic. It's unclear how extensive the pause will be, but agencies must now analyze all funding programs to ensure compliance with Trump's executive orders targeting progressive policies. Now let's head to South America, where President Gustavo Petro has condemned the escalating violence in the northeastern Catatumbo region, where clashes between ELN rebels and FARC dissidents have displaced nearly 50,000 people in 10 days. Petro links the violence to the illegal cocoa leaf trade, which he claims attracts violent groups vying for control of the territory. The latest bout of fighting has claimed 13 lives in the past 2 days, heightening concerns over the region's security and humanitarian impact. Authorities are struggling to cope with the growing crisis as thousands of civilians are caught in the crossfire, with both the government and armed groups intensifying their efforts to gain dominance over the cocoa production area.
Lo que hay en el Catatumbo es una fuerza extranjera ocupando el territorio. Por eso yo dije en alguna de mis trinos, este es un problema de soberanía nacional, no solo es un conflicto interno. Y entonces yo le propongo a la población dejar el cultivo de hoja de coca. Y se van los violentos. Lo que atrae a los violentos es el cultivo de hoja de coca, no porque la...
In Europe, Serbian Prime Minister Milosevic announces his resignation on Tuesday following months of mass protests triggered by the deadly roof collapse at Novi Sad's train station in November. The tragedy, which killed 15 people, sparked outrage over corruption and poor oversight in construction projects. Vucevic, who had been in office for less than a year, made the decision after meeting with President Aleksandar Vučić, hoping to ease growing tension in the country. Bani Sad Mayor Milan Đurić also resigned, stating that stepping down was an act of taking responsibility and restoring public trust in leadership.
I zato, nakon ovog događaja sinoć u Novom Sadu, moja neopoziva odluka je da podnesem ostavku na mesto predsjednika Vlade Republike Srbije. Ja sam jutros imao dug sastanak sa predsjednikom Republike, pričali smo o svemu, pričali smo o ovome i prihvatio je moju odluku, prihvatio.
We'll go on a quick break now, and when we return, Israel serves contact with UNRWA. This and more after this timeout. Do stay with us. Welcome back, and now we go to our earlier story on Trump and the reforms being made to the U.S. military, where in his words he says he is removing transgender ideology from the U.S. Army. Now joining us on this to discuss this is public analyst David Sinjoku, managing partner ENN Prime LP. He joins us from Abuja. You're welcome. Thank you very much for joining us. Great. Now, Mr. Njoku, let's begin. The subject in question is one the president made a promise about, and is really moving intentionally to keep it. So did you expect this transition to be this fast?
Yes, good evening. Donald Trump, as the 47th United States President on the 20th of January 2025, was sworn in. So, as a very pragmatic and a practical person he is, I would say that I'm not surprised that he decided to swing into action immediately. He was sworn in because, from the look of things, when he was the president-elect, he was all over the place. Social media, news, newspapers, magazines, and what have you. So he had already started preparing himself before he was sworn in. So I wouldn't say the transition came as a surprise, because he's someone that is very fast, very pragmatic in whatever he's doing. So, and again, as a way of, fulfilling his campaign promises, so he had to make sure that, he swing into action by signing numerous executive orders targeting key areas like immigration, trade, energy, federal workforce policies, and...
Mr. Njok, I want to say thank you very much for giving us your opinion on that one. Thank you very much. Moving on now. France has issued a red weather alert for parts of Brittany on Monday as a powerful storm caused severe flooding, which with levels not seen in decades. Now, the storm named Herminia brought heavy rain to the Île-et-Vilaine department, where the city of Reims experienced its worst flooding in 40 years. The situation remains critical, with weather authorities warning of worsening conditions. 8 additional departments are on orange alert for flooding, flash floods, or avalanches, particularly in the French Alps. Over the weekend, authorities in Reims evacuated over 400 residents from streets near the St. Martin Canal, converting gyms into temporary shelters. The rising waters caused houseboats to float at the same level as parked cars, and authorities warned that it could take until Wednesday for the water levels to begin to recede.
La Vilaine a monté, surtout hier, on nous avait annoncé sur Vichy-Cru 20 cm dans la nuit de samedi à dimanche. En réalité, il y a eu 60 cm et puis en plus hier, 60 cm. Là aujourd'hui, on a une maison qui n'avait jamais été inondée, enfin à l'intérieur, le garage oui. Et aujourd'hui on a mesuré là 35 cm exactement. Cette maison-là, on l'a depuis 85, on l'a vu en 95 dans le garage, 99, 2001, mais pas dans la maison à ce point-là. Il n'y en avait pas eu dans la maison, c'était juste un tout petit filet. Là, 35 cm.
Il n'y a plus de courant. Ça a coupé parce que, en fait, depuis les dernières inondations, on a surrelevé nos congélateurs et tout. Et ils sont à 1 mètre de hauteur. Et là, ça dépasse les 1 mètre dans le sous-sol. Donc, ça fait discuter le truc. Mais dans le sous-sol, on a aussi jusque-là.
Now, more on President Trump. The first few days of Trump's presidency has seen a whirlwind of executive orders being signed. The latest is ordering the release of thousands of classified files on former U.S. President John F. Kennedy's assassination. The 1963 killing in Dallas is the source of one of the most well-known conspiracy theories of modern times, but the order has been met with some criticism. Now, here, News Central international correspondent Althea Hagen has more. I'm being informed that we'll bring you that later. Now, French Prime Minister François Bayrou has urged lawmakers to address the issue of carrying bladed weapons following the tragic stabbing of 14-year-old Elias in Paris. The murder, which occurred after Elias tried to resist a phone theft, has reignited concerns about youth violence. 2 minors, aged 16 and 17, have been arrested and charged with extortion, leading to death. Bayrou emphasized the need for a collective effort to tackle the growing prevalence of knives among young people. In response to a question from Marine Le Pen, who criticized the current criminal policy as too lenient, Bayrou pointed out to a forthcoming bill on juvenile justice. The bill aims to introduce more immediate consequences for particular crimes. Now let's take a break. When we come back, more inside Beyond the Continent. Welcome back. Now, an Italian Navy ship on Tuesday arrived in Albania with 49 migrants who were intercepted in international waters. Their asylum applications are set to be handled by processing centers in Albania. The majority of those on board are Bangladeshi nationals, while the rest are from Egypt, the Ivory Coast, and Gambia. They will now go through the accelerated border procedures for arrivals from countries deemed safe who have not provided documents proving their identity. The attempts to process migrants in Albania comes after 2 previous failures in October and November, when Italian judges refused to approve the detention of 2 small groups at Albanian processing centers, which were built under a contentious agreement between Italy and Albania. In the Middle East, Qatar's foreign ministry spokesman Majed al-Ansari addresses concerns over the ongoing truce between Israel and Hamas during a press conference in Doha. He emphasized that there had been no major breaches in the ceasefire that could jeopardize the agreement or lead to further escalation. Al-Ansari acknowledged the challenges surrounding the release of Israeli hostage Arbel Yehud, but reassured the public that the truce remained intact. Despite ongoing difficulties, both sides have maintained the terms of the ceasefire with no signs of imminent failure. The situation continues to evolve as negotiations surrounding the hostages and broader peace efforts progress.
Furthermore, UNRWA will be prohibited from maintaining any representative, office, service, or activity within our territory. Israel will terminate all collaboration, communication.
Now let's also tell you that Annalise Dance, the UK's development minister, announced that additional UK funding aid has been sent to Gaza following the recent truce between Hamas and Israel. The aid aims to provide urgent support for those returning to northern Gaza, where many are facing severe shortages of shelter, food, and medical care. Dance emphasized the dire need for assistance, particularly as people attempt to rebuild their lives after the conflict. The UK's commitment to increasing its humanitarian efforts highlights the country's response to the growing crisis in the region. The aid package is part of broader international efforts to address the widespread suffering in Gaza and provide essential relief to those affected by the ongoing violence.
Today I can announce that the UK is investing in the ceasefire. We've all seen scenes of people returning to what were their homes in northern Gaza. They desperately need shelter, food and medical support. Well, the UK, with this announcement, will be providing that. And I can confirm that just this morning, UK medicines were transported into Gaza on a Jordanian helicopter. I'm really pleased that UK military planners were able to help with that initiative. We'll keep working with our partners, including Jordan and UN agencies, also including UNRWA, so that we can get that much needed aid into Gaza and support the ceasefire.
Finally, in Asia, where at least 5 people have been killed and 40 others injured in an accident where a wooden platform collapsed during a religious gathering in Bagpat district, northern India, on Tuesday. The incident occurred at a Jain temple where hundreds of devotees had assembled to offer confectionery. This tragic event highlights the persistent safety issues during major religious gatherings in India, where overcrowding and inadequate infrastructure often contribute to accidents. The collapse in Bagpat follows a history of similar incidents, including a deadly stampede in Uttar Pradesh last year that claimed 121 lives and a 2016 explosion in Kerala that killed 112 people. Jainism, followed by a small percentage of India's population, teaches nonviolence and compassion for all living beings. The accident coincides with the ongoing Kumbh Mela festival in Prayagraj, attracting millions of devotees.
यहाँ पे था बड़ौत में, यहाँ पे 40 लोगों के घायल होने की सूचना है। 20 लोगों को जो है उनका उपचार करके उनको घर भेज दिया गया है और 20 लोगों का भी उपचार हॉस्पिटल में चल रहा है।
अब कोई कैजुअलिटी है मैम?
5 के आसपास की कैजुअलिटी अभी रिपोर्टेड है।
Now that's all on Beyond the Continent tonight. To remember, you can watch News Central live on DSTV channel 422, Star Times channel 274, AVO TV, and of course on YouTube. Many thanks for watching. My name is Mazino Appeal.